Hey, what's going on, everybody? Justin here, and in this video I got something a little bit different, something a little bit out of my normal wheelhouse with 5 works of classic fiction that I want to finish before the end of the year. And yeah, I know what you're thinking, this is just totally out of the ordinary for me, and I definitely agree. I haven't read classics with like a capital C, especially fiction. I've read some like kind of classic non-fiction stuff, but books of the canon or classic works and things like that. I haven't read that years, literal years, probably like 10 years, probably like since college. That's like probably the last time I can even think. But it's been something I kind of been like thinking about a lot more since coming back to BookTube this year. And then randomly, about 2 months ago, I picked up Joris Karl Huysman's Against Nature. I think it's known as Arbor in the original French. And I read it and I actually enjoyed it, and then I got to thinking, oh my gosh, am I like missing like a whole bunch of stuff by not reading like fiction and then like, the classics and stuff like that. So I figured I would give it a try, I think. If you want to hear my talk on that a little bit more on that one, I'll leave a link to my August wrap up where I kind of deal with that a little bit more detail. But yeah, I got a work from, let's see, in English, one from the original is in English, French, German, Russian, and Finnish. So I try to, kind of go across a couple different languages and everything just to see what everything's all about. I try not to always pick like the super obvious ones. I don't know if that even like makes sense, but I guess you'll see as I go along. You're gonna be like, huh, are those even like classics? But they're in the, most of them are in the Oxford World Classics. I figured they're part of the canon in some way, shape, or form. But let's just go ahead and get started before I ramble on too much. So the first up, for the German one, we got Goethe's, Johann Wolfgang von Goethe's The Sorrows of Young Werther. And he's probably most famous for his rendition of Faust. But he wrote this one about like 30 years before. I think he was only like in his like early 20s when he wrote Sorrows of Young Werther. And this is like one of the ultimate books of unrequited love. It's a complete love triangle, except it's not even really a triangle. It's Werther falls in love. I think it's Charlotte, if I remember off the top of my head, when I was kind of like just making sure I like wasn't blowing too much smoke when I talk about these books, because like I said, I'm not like super knowledgeable on the classics. But I did a little bit of research, kind of like panning out like which ones I'd like to like kind of try just to see. Maybe like I'll start adding them maybe like monthly or whatever. But anyways, he falls in love with a woman who's already engaged to be married. They end up getting married and everything, and he just can't handle it, and just spoiler alert, and content warning and stuff, there's suicide and everything. But yeah, apparently this is like one of the like I said, ultimate books on kind of the proto-romantic era, or the romantics on like unrequited love. But it's sort of also, from what I understand too, it's loosely based on like different relationships Goethe had during this time period and some friendships that he had as well. But what I find interesting, the reason I decided to pick this one up instead of like Faust or something, I think it's sort of apocryphal, but Napoleon, when he was Emperor Napoleon of France, Goethe was like super famous after this book came out for pretty much the rest of his life. He did other stuff too, like science and everything. But I think there's like Napoleon did meet with Goethe. I don't know if it's true, this part is true, where I think Faust had like recently just came out or was about to be published or something. And I think Goethe was like talking about it, and Napoleon basically goes, yeah, but like when you're gonna write like the sequel to like Werther or something like that, because everyone just wanted more of like this kind of thing than some of his like other stuff, even though he was like super popular and like well regarded during his lifetime, which is kind of nice. So yeah, like I said, all I know is it's this like a super like typical kind of like romantic style. So yeah, just try to pick that one up. And it's small too, so I don't want, some Russian book that's 1,100 pages that I'm not going to actually finish and go, all fiction sucks. Next up, and I think these are in like dates of publication, I think is how I organize these ones. Granted, this one is kind of, you know, a little bit different, though it is, I think, from like the 1830s, whereas I think Werther was like 1780s, I want to say, but don't quote me on that. So we got the Kalevala. It was originally done by, was it Elias Goting, I think. This one is translated from the Finnish by Keith Bosley. But the Kalevala I want to pick up, this is originally from the Finnish, but it's like epic poetry in the sense of like Iliad, Odyssey, like kind of Nibelungenlied, Song of Roland, that kind of vein of thinking, I guess. And so I read all those other epic poems. I figured, why haven't I read like the Finnish version? Especially like J.R. Tolkien really liked this and kind of incorporated some of these kind of themes and cycles and stuff, I guess, into his history of Middle Earth and stuff. But I honestly don't really know anything about it other than that I think it's like a collection of 50 sort of like loosely connected short stories / segments or something. It's poetry, so I'm not even sure. Short stories probably like not even the right phrasing there. But they were compiled. It must be. I can't. Elias Lönnrot, in the early to mid 1800s, from like just like kind of the oral traditions that were going around in Finland and the Karelia Peninsula, which I think is in Russia now. So yeah, like I said, it's just like kind of a national epic of Finland, and I've read tons of other epic poetry. Really enjoy that kind of stuff. Figured why not also read the Finnish one. So yeah, that one is definitely the longest, I think. Well, actually, the last one might be a little bit longer. This one's probably more pages, but it's like poetry, so it's not actually like super filled out. Next up is the French one, and it's Émile Zola's The Fortune of the Rougon. And this is part of a 20-book cycle that, if I really enjoy this one, I've actually read one of the other ones. Book number 13 is Germinal, and I did read that one in college. And that was like one of the only classics I can remember that wasn't like ancient Greek or Roman at the time that I really, really enjoyed. Can't remember what class I had to like read that in. But anyways, I really loved that one. That was all about a coal miners' strike in northern France in the 1850s or 1860s. But this whole cycle of 20 books is all about, I think it's called like the Le Rougon Macquart, which is two like interlinked family lines. And this is kind of like the origin. It's interesting. The fortune is like kind of the fortunes of like kind of their like luck and history and that sort of stuff, as well as like how they kind of got rich during this time period. But all the books are like kind of dealing with different distant like members of this family, but they all take place during the French Second Empire, which is roughly 1850 to 1870 when these books take place. And that's when like Napoleon III kind of does a coup in France from the earlier republic and just becomes like another emperor and stuff. But from what I understand is like Émile Zola was in the like this style of writing called like scientific objectivism. So it was like the complete opposite of like the idealized like romantics and everything. It was very like kind of natural history. I say natural history, well, all nature books and stuff. I guess just like really focused on like the real human condition, kind of like deterministic theories and stuff like that. I'm not really 100% sure. Like I said, I'm only kind of going by just my like cursory sort of research on like some of them. But like I said, I had already read Germinal. And I figured since I like that, I might as well, just start with the book number 1. Even though I think they're all like standalone. They just kind of like have like different kind of tangents that interconnect and everything like that. But yeah, I wanted like a French one. But yeah, just trying something a little bit different. I guess Huysman was French too, so I've already kind of like dipped my toes a little bit in that vein of things. But I did like his writing style at the time. Granted, that, like I said, that was like 15 years ago, so I have no idea if things changed. But I also know about Émile Zola from the Dreyfus Affair and just my history reading and stuff. For those who don't know what that is, it's the French military kind of scapegoated this Jewish soldier who, like, there was a bunch of military leaks to like the Germans and everything like that, and they kind of used him as a scapegoat, and he was innocent. And like Émile Zola, like put put everything on the line and like ran a bunch of ads in like the newspapers and everything that going against the military establishment, everything like that. So he seemed like a really, really cool guy. So yeah, so there was the French one. Next up is the English one, which I think was published right around the turn of the century. It probably actually says on the late 1880s. We got Jerome, which, like, I had never even, this book came about literally just from me, like, researching, like, English classics, just because I've talked with my friend Tim. He's been on a few of my videos and stuff, and he's, you know, going for his PhD in English literature and everything, and he would, like, always list off a bunch of, like, English, you know, canon with a big C authors, and I'm like, nah, they don't sound good to me. So when I was just, like, researching just, like, English, you know, classics and everything, somehow this one came up. And I was like, what the heck is 3 Men in a Boat? And sometimes it has 3 Men in a Boat, and to say nothing of the dog. I'm like, what in the world is going on? And it's literally like a description. It's like a travel log of, you know, just like 3 friends and their dog going on a boat adventure, like up the River Thames to like Oxford and back. Over the course of like a week or two, and I think they stop at like different like inns and pubs and stuff. But it's like also like a comedy novel, and apparently the comedy is supposed to hold up fairly decently, I guess. I don't know, but like I think I've even done a couple of videos on the channel where I'm like in a canoe and everything. I have kayaks and canoes and stuff, and I live in the middle of nowhere, so that's something I kind of like to do. But yeah, like I said, I have no idea about like a boat expedition up the River Thames like in the late 1880s. For a bunch of guys, I think, like, just trying to, like, leave, like, the city life of London. But apparently it's almost like, it's, like, part, I guess, like, it's like a travel story where they talk about, like, the things they're seeing and everything, but also, like, a comedy story. So I don't know, it sounded really interesting, and it was popular enough to have something of a sequel with 3 Men on the Bummel, which is them, like, riding bikes in Germany in the forest or something like that. So yeah, I figured I'd try something really goofy for the English one. And then lastly, we do have the Russian pick, and I didn't go with any of, like, you know, the big, super big names. None of the guys from the 1800s. I don't know, they just didn't quite seem like the thing I wanted to read. And when I heard about, like I said, I'm going to have a hard time even describing this one. But it's The Master and Margarita by Mikhail Bulgakov. And I think this was technically, I think the author died in the 1940s, and that's roughly when he finished it. But it wasn't published until like the 60s, like in France and some other European countries, I think. You know, notably because this is just a satire, complete satire of like 1930s Stalinist Russia. And you can't really be publishing that kind of thing in Russia at that time. So I think there was there's a word for it, like Savvy's-debt or something. I read that in like the Soviet century. I think this book actually is like talked about in that book, about like Soviet culture and stuff, where a lot of people would like handwrite books, like, you know, like monk style. So like they weren't like in a printing press and stuff, and like they kind of form clubs and like pass them around and everything like that. Anyways, what sold me on this one is not only is it a satire of Stalinist Russia, the main characters are essentially the devil, his talking cat, his hitman, and like a witch or something. And they're just apparently having a good time in 1930s Russia because, you know, why wouldn't they fit in? And they cause a little bit of problems and havoc. The Master and Margarita, from the title, I guess the Master is a novelist who's just going through some mental stuff. I think an asylum or a hospital. Margarita is his mistress that tries to, like, you know, not lose faith in him and everything. And the Master has been writing his own novel, which takes place, it's like about Pontius Pilate or something, from like biblical times and everything. I don't even know how it like all goes together. I was sold on just the characters, I guess, like all coming together and just, you know, causing havoc and problems in, you know, Stalinist Russia in the 1930s. Plus, look at that cover. Though this one, I think, is... I'm not sure what the rules are to be like an Oxford World Classic. I think they have to be like certain ages, or like after a certain like time, or before a certain time period, maybe to become like one of those. But look at this cover. I mean, you can't really beat that one. Even a lot of the vintage covers, they have like the Black Cat covers and everything. I just thought they were really cool. So I think this one might be a little bit different from like kind of your traditional Dostoevsky and Tolstoy and like Pushkin and Gogol and things like that. Which, I don't know, maybe if I really enjoy, if I enjoy any of these like a lot, I'll probably like keep going kind of and trying to find books like similar to them. But yeah, let me know in the comments below which one of these 5 I should read first. I will be interested to see like kind of what I find out about them, if I enjoy them, if I'm going to keep, classics and fiction in general like in my rotation for reading and stuff like that. And if you have any other recommendations that you think I would enjoy, leave those down below as well. Like I said, this is totally brand new to me. I feel like I just talked on my neck like a ton there. Like, it's so out of my like comfort zone and wheelhouse, but something, like I said, I've been wanting to do for probably like 4 or 5 months. I've been kind of like really been thinking about it. And like I said, when I saw Huysman in that bookstore for like $4, I was like, what can I possibly like lose? And I was like, wow, what is going on? I actually kind of enjoyed that. But anyways, thank you so much for watching. If you want to hear me talk about, fiction, but if you also like, the science and history and all that stuff, if you haven't subscribed already, might as well. That's definitely my wheelhouse. Not so much this, but, whatever you end up reading, whether it's a work of fiction or not, always remember, read victoriously.